Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Sideline Shenanigans podcast. Today with Jacob Maggerdan.
Dalton Phillips.
We'll go ahead and start us off with our drink of the week, as we're calling it now. Dalton, if you want to go ahead and lead us off there, sir.
Yeah, I've got the classic. Probably my favorite ever pop. I know Maggard's not a huge fan of it, which is weird because I don't know anybody that doesn't like Coke. Coke over Pepsi every day of the week. I'm just going to say that.
I think Coke is overrated as heck. I think it just doesn't have a very good flavor to me personally. But of course, we have the Mountain Dew of the week that we used to do. We've been struggling to find some new flavors, but they've been releasing some new ones. We've got a Mountain Dew citrus blackberry, interesting flavor, new to the scene. And it's pretty it's interesting. It's a game fuel, so it's got a little bit more caffeine in there.
Oh yeah, you need that. I know you'd be staying up late for them exams.
Yeah, if you remember those old game fuels they used to do in the cans, it's kind of like what it's supposed to be like. But yeah, it's pretty good. It's not the best thing I've ever had, but it's good. It's different. Of course, Mountain Dew, we would love a sponsorship.
And also, we would love to like try out new flavors for you. Me and him are we could say expertise in like everything involving taste. You can see
Yeah,
we're both big fellas here. We're those guys. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it.
two former O linemen. We can let you know if we like the
If
flavor.
it's gonna be successful.
Yeah. All right. Of course, diving into the week here. I got a good week coming up. Of course, conference championship games always a fun part of the season, and a lot of these teams that don't have playoff hopes, this is their playoff. This is their championship game. This is what matters to them. And getting this championship is big for a program because again in those small conferences, it's just a boost to your overall program when you can pull a championship trophy in and have that to show off when recruits come down for visits and whatnot. And of course, for the future of college football, as of right now, these small time schools can potentially make playoff games with these wins, which we will talk about one later on that will be determining a playoff spot. But to go ahead and start us off right here, it's Conference USA. This is a very fun conference. There's a lot of teams in here that are newer to college football, but we're seeing one of the classics in Western Kentucky, known for their passing game. They do a lot of that. And then on the other side, of course, Jacksonville State, new to the FBS, only been in here for about 2 years, and they're doing well for themselves. I mean, they've had a lot of good time, big time transfers that come in and make differences, kind of like their starting quarterback, Tyler Huff, leading off into his stats here. 2,000-yard passer with 11 touchdowns on the season and 6 interceptions. But kind of the big storyline with him is he got injured in the last game that they played, which was against Western Kentucky. They played at the end of the season. It was at Western Kentucky, and Huff went down in that game, and Logan Smothers had to finish the game. Former Nebraska quarterback that transferred in as a junior, did not play much last year. Was kind of a 100 and some snaps on the season, threw some passes here and there, about 700 passing yards. But he's never really done a whole lot in his career. He is a veteran quarterback that's been in college football for a while, but he hasn't been used like a veteran quarterback because he just hasn't started anywhere. It'll be interesting to see if Huff is not hurt in this game. He's a game time decision, and obviously that will play a large part into who will be the favorite coming into this one. Now on the other side, Caden Veltkamp, a 2,000-yard passer, of course, in the season. You see he's got 2,600 yards, 22 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. They do like to pass the ball a lot at Western Kentucky. That is part of their offense. Now, he is a lot less than what a lot of their quarterbacks have had in the past, sitting at only 2,600. But he's a pretty good quarterback, has struggled a little bit with turnovers, but it will be a fun matchup when those two meet up in this game if we get to see Huff and Veltkamp against each other. Dalton, if we go ahead and talk about the running backs here.
Yeah, Western Kentucky has Elijah Young. He's a good running back there. It's just the fact that they pass the ball a lot. That's just their offense. I understand that. He's doing what he needs to do when he gets the ball. He's got almost 800 yards. That's a good season. 3 touchdowns is a little lackluster. But on the other side of the ball, you have a outstanding running back, and that is Trey Stewart. He's that guy. Him and the quarterback both have 1,000 rushing yards right now. That's a great running game there, and that's a hard thing to stop. Trey Stewart has 1,400 yards and 20 touchdowns. 20 touchdowns is insane. I mean, that guy's is doing exactly what you want him to do when he gets the ball. He's scoring touchdowns and making big runs. And that if you win the ball game, it's going to be because of this guy.
Yeah, I mean, that rushing attack is absolutely deadly. Again, if Huff is healthy, they are extremely scary. When you have two guys that can both go over 100 yards and have been doing that consistently on the year, it makes it incredibly difficult to stop them on the ground. Talking about the receiving game, for Western Kentucky, of course, they rely on their receivers because they are a pass first team. Keyshawn Johnson here with 65 catches for 830 yards and 6 touchdowns. he's kind of been the guy for them. I mean, you don't see a whole lot of receivers in college football balling out the way he does at a smaller school. Again, they pass a lot, so it helps the guy out. But again, a phenomenal season with 65 receptions. And on the other side for Jacksonville State, Cam Vaughn, we mentioned him when we talked about them last time. He is just kind of the safety blanket for them. When they need to make a play in the passing game, they go to Cam Vaughn, 35 catches, 529 yards, 3 touchdowns. And what's very impressive is with them both being 1,000-yard rushers, they still have a 2,000-yard passer. So this offense can be very, very good. And the dynamic will change if Smothers plays because he isn't as much of a rusher as Tyler Huff. Nowhere near the rusher Tyler Huff is. So we'll see what happens. This Cam Vaughn may be more important in this game than he has had to be the entire season. Going to make a pick here. This game was just played. It was played a couple days ago. Western Kentucky had to win to get into this conference championship game. They got it done on their home field. Now, the Tyler Huff injury was a big part of that. The Western Kentucky team, they kicked a lot of field goals in this game. They ended up winning it by a close margin. I think Jacksonville State getting this game at home, hopefully getting Tyler Huff back, I think they take it. I think that they are the better football team. And as you can see, the Bet-Nots favorites by 4 points. I think Huff will be playing. I think that he will be healthy. I think Stewart will run all over him. Give me Jacksonville State to take home the Conference USA Championship game.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Big Red. I always loved their mascot. It's very unique. It's just a big blob of red, and they have some cool little uniforms with that. I'm going to go with WKU.
Next game here, Tulane versus Army at West Point, and it's going to be cold. Up in New York, of course, expecting somewhere in the 20-degree margin. This is going to be a good game. This Army team, of course, coming off that upsetting loss to Notre Dame, where they just really had a chance to push for a college football playoff spot. That did not happen. Notre Dame was just way too good. And then this Tulane team, the same situation. They're coming off a loss where it eliminated them from playoff contention against the Memphis team that was supposed to be really good this year, but it struggled in conference play. Both these teams just have struggled a little bit to get it done. But you can balance that out and get a championship here. Of course, Army's first year in the American Athletic Conference, they want to get it done. You look at the stats for both of these teams, they both rely heavily on their quarterback. I mean, these two teams, they have good quarterbacks. Now, not that Tulane can't get it done on the ground, but when you look at Darian Mensah, a 2,500-yard passer, 20 touchdowns, only the 5 interceptions in the 12 games, he's very, very good. He also has a little bit of running ability himself. He is a complete game changer. He is a guy that could end up at a bigger school at some point in the future. This guy's really good. He could be playing some Power 4 football for sure. And on the other side for Army, Bryson Daly, one of the best quarterbacks in the country when it comes to his ground game. But he's also had a pretty good passing attack this year. 860 yards through the air, 8 touchdowns, only the 1 interception. He does not turn the ball over very much at all. And if he does, it's a little bit being a fumble or something because he runs the ball so much. But he is good at protecting the ball. He is better at passing than a lot of Army quarterbacks have been. And this guy is a complete game changer when he is on the field due to his rushing ability. Dalton, if you want to talk about the rushing attack for these two teams.
Yeah, Army, this team's just going to run the ball down your throat, and that's what they believe in. That's what they always will do. And even their pass games, they'll always fake a handoff because teams are always expecting a run. Like nobody expects him to pass. That's why he's got a decent throwing stats as what he is because that's just what they do. And that's because you got people like Kanye Udo and Noah Short in the backfield, and you also have to rely on Bryson Daly out of the backfield. That guy is dirty. Like he's one of the best rushing quarterbacks in college football, and you can see he has almost 240 carries, and that's insane. And Mekhi Hughes for Tulane, he's a great football player. They don't rely on him as much as they should, in my opinion. I think this guy should be a 260 carry back, even though that's crazy numbers. I think that he just needs a few more carries to open up this offense a little bit more and help them win games that they should have won.
Yeah, again, the game last week is a good example of them not getting him going. They lose that Memphis game because he only has 15 total yards in that game. It just didn't get what they wanted out of him. And again, he is one of the best backs in the country when he is flowing in the game script. But that one just wasn't for him. It just didn't get going. It never worked out. And on the Army side, of course, you mentioned a lot of their backs. Giving some light to a fullback in Jake Rendina. He is a monster. It is one of the biggest fullbacks I've ever seen in my life. The dude is an absolute beast. In those short yardage situations, Kanye Udo is really, really dominant. But when they need a block, they go to Jake Rendina to let him lay somebody out. That is another fun piece of that Army team. Of course, you see the fullbacks employed, and you don't see that in a lot of these college football schemes anymore. You look at the receiving game, of course, for Tulane, Mario Williams, has been very good this year. 48 catches for 831 yards, 4 touchdowns. Mensa's guy, when he trusts him, he goes to him. Of course, he also uses Hughes a little bit in the receiving game. He's too dynamic not to get him the ball. And on the other side for Army, they have Casey Reynolds as their lead receiver, but again, he catches a lot of those, one play. They have like a little drawn up play. Boom, he breaks off a huge gain because they're just not expecting it. As you can see, 17 catches on the year, but has 417 yards. So when he gets the ball, it is a big play because it is one of those fakes, like you mentioned, that they like to pull off all the time. Going to make a pick here. I think this game being at Army will help them a ton. It is going to be their environment, their stadium, the way they want to play football. They possess the ball better than anybody in college football. They run the ball better than anybody in college football. And what Tulane couldn't do last week against Memphis was stop the run. They allowed over 230 rushing yards to a Memphis team that is not a phenomenal rushing attack. They are now playing the best rushing attack in college football. Now, Tulane, they handled business when they played Navy earlier in the year. It was not very close. It was a 35-0 football game. Navy had not been shut out in a long, long time. They know how to stop the service academies, but do they know how to stop a service academy with Bryson Daly at quarterback? I don't think so. Give me Army. Go Black Knights.
Yeah, I'm going to go Army also. I think that this Army team is just a hard team to stop. I think they're a little bit better than that 24 ranked. They just played a really tough Notre Dame team. That one loss was, I mean, that Notre Dame team was crazy after that NIU loss, and I just don't think that Tulane can stop this offense.
Next game here, UNLV at Boise State on the blue turf. And of course, this game has massive implications. This is a playoff spot up for grabs. Both of these teams have played very good this year. But of course, Boise State has that one win in Las Vegas earlier in the year, a 29-24 victory. And this UNLV team, they struggle against the pass, but one thing they don't really struggle against is the rushing attack. You kind of saw that game that they had to get Jeanty 30 carries in that one to get over his 130-yard mark. But he's still an elite running back, so he can run on pretty much any defense you put against him. You look at the stats here. UNLV quarterback Haj Malik Williams, since taking over for Matthew Sluka, has been awesome. He's been very, very good. He is a good runner. He makes a lot of plays with his feet, but on top of that, he is a 1,700-yard passer with 17 touchdowns and only 4 interceptions. He does not make a lot of mistakes. He was a very good quarterback coming out of the FCS level. Transferring here, a lot of people said he might be better than Sluka, and Sluka was a good quarterback. I think he's proven that he can lift this team up and really compete. And again, he knows how to use his guy, who we'll be talking about in a little bit. And then, of course, for Boise, Maddox Madsen, all he has to do is just do his job. We've talked about it all year. If he just comes out here and plays well, he don't even have to play a great football game. They can get it done. He's done better than that this year. 2,500-yard passer, 21 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions through 12 games is very, very good for Maddox Madsen. He only struggled in one of those 12 games, and that was a game where they just had to rely on Jeanty to get it done, which is kind of awesome when you can do that. When your quarterback plays bad, you can just rely on the superstar in the backfield. Dalton, if you want to talk about the rushing attack for these two teams.
Yeah, Boise State has the best running back in the country, and there's no doubt about it. This guy is the best back I've ever watched, just in general. I watched Derrick Henry. I watched that guy in person. I don't think he holds up anything to this guy. I mean, he is ridiculous, and I know you love Derrick Henry, and I think you will almost agree with me in this aspect. UNLV has a great running back in Jaden Thomas. I mean, he's a great running back, just nowhere near the caliber that Ashton Jeanty is. I mean, nobody is. They also have a running back in Kylan James. This guy is a 500-yard rusher this year. He's averaging like almost 6 yards a carry. I mean, he's doing good when he gets the ball. And at his old college at Northern Arkansas, this guy was a 1,200-yard receiver and 1,300-yard rusher in 2 years. That is crazy stats there. And I don't understand. He's only got 1 reception this year. I think this guy should get the ball out of the backfield. He's just change of pace kind of guy. I feel like that should be needed.
Yeah, again, that's a weird situation where they're just not using him like they were, of course, were at a smaller college. It'll be interesting to see if that dynamic, changes at all in this game if he gets in there. Now, of course, again, 500-yard rusher means he is getting some carries. He's being on the field some. I don't know if they just don't trust him as a receiver. That's an interesting situation there. Of course, Jaden Thomas, he's doing his job when he gets the ball. And like you mentioned, Ashton Jeanty is definitely a freak of nature, one of the best running backs to ever play college football. Not debatable. If anybody wants to argue that with you, pull up the tape and watch this guy play. It is unbelievable to see. And then, of course, we talk about the receiving game for these two teams. I'll start with Boise State. Camper here, 51 catches, 811 yards, 4 touchdowns. They also have Matt Lauder, a very important tight end in the receiving attack. These two guys are good. Of course, They have other guys they go to, and Genty can catch passes. He was a very good receiving back in his high school playing days. So he can do that. He has really natural hands. He's very good at catching the ball. You don't see that from a lot of running backs, of course. And then on the other side for UNLV, this is where we talk about a superstar. We're talking about Ricky White. We're talking about their cheat code. When you talk about Genty, you say, man, he could be the game changer that makes those plays that really wins a game for Boise. Ricky White can do that for you in every facet of the game. He can return a kick for you. Then he can go punt block for you. And then he can come out and be one of the best receivers in the country for you. This guy is an elite athlete. It's very cool to watch both these teams have those guys that are just signature athletes. He will be a second, third round pick in the NFL draft. And the guy's very quick. He does everything as a receiver. And again, 1,000 yards and 11 touchdowns. Going to make a pick here. These two teams, again, they've played before. And it was at Las Vegas. I think when you come back to the home stadium, the blue turf, I think Boise defends it. I think that they are one of the best teams in these situations. They come home, they play well. This crowd will be there. This Boise State team has a big time fan base. I think Boise gets it done. I think Genty puts himself in that Heisman conversation, and we'll see what the committee thinks when they vote on this. I think having this extra game, having the chance to put his team in the playoffs, and if he goes crazy, that is a little bit of that, bias of seeing the last game played by the guys you're voting on. If he goes crazy in this one, I want to see him win it. I think he should win it. I think that he is the Heisman candidate. I want to see him go off in this game. Give me Boise State.
I agree with you with Boise State. I know Idaho's not a very big state. I think everybody in that state's going to be at that game because, this is a huge game, gets them the playoffs. And I do agree with you on the Ashton Genty thing. I think that if he pulls them to the playoffs, I will give him the Heisman. I know I've had him as my number two, but if Travis isn't pulling them to the playoffs, that's probably not going to happen. I think if Ashton Genty does carry this team to a playoff appearance, I think he gets the Heisman.
Next game here, Ohio Bobcats versus the Miami of Ohio Redhawks. A very fun game, a rivalry game in the MAC championship, and we always talk about MACtion. It's always very fun. Of course, this is a game that's been played before this season, and Miami of Ohio got it done. They are on a 7-0 streak here, and Brett Gabbert is leading that. The Miami of Ohio quarterback, 2,600 yards, 21 touchdowns, the 10 interceptions, and you might know that last name because this is Blaine Gabbert's younger brother. He does have a little bit of that turnover issue like his older brother, but he is getting it done on the field. 2,600 yards is pretty good for the season. And then on the other side for Ohio, they run an option-style offense a lot, but of course they still pass the ball a ton. Almost 2,000-yard passer. In Parker Navarro, 1,900 yards, 10 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. That is not great. You don't want your touchdown-interception ratio to be 1-to-1. And he was benched the last time these two teams played. Let's see if he can bounce back. Dalton, if you want to talk about the rushing attack for these two teams.
You've got two running backs here that are both studs. Ohio has Anthony Tyus. I'd like to see the touchdown numbers up a little bit. 8's good, but at an offense like that, he needs to have at least 10, in my opinion. And Miami of Ohio, Keon Mosey, this guy is a stud. He is the kind of guy I would say. I know I said a lot. He needs to get a little more carries. 100, almost 100, barely 160, almost there. He has 1,000 yards, 4 touchdowns. Give this guy the ball in the red zone. He needs touchdowns. Like running backs, those guys got to love that once they touch the end zone. It's just and this guy's only got 4 of them. He's helping you win ball games. Let him touch the end zone some more.
It'll be interesting to see what Miami of Ohio can do against that because that is Ohio's game plan. That's what they do. And last time it didn't work too well. Then we go down and look at the receiving game for these two teams. Ohio is a receiver that is balling out this year in Coleman Owen. 62 catches for 1,032 yards, 7 touchdowns. He's been very, very good. Not much more you can ask for a guy that's playing in an option offense and having more than half your quarterback's yards on the season. And then, of course, for Miami of Ohio, we have Reggie Virgil. 39 catches, 787 yards, 9 touchdowns. That's Gabbert's main target that he goes to. Going to make a pick here. This game being played at Ford Field, that's going to be very fun. These two teams get to play on a big-time surface. Maybe you see a couple of these guys in the league one day. Maybe they'll be playing here again. But I think that this Miami of Ohio defense was very, very good against the run. They have been all year. They shut down Ohio last time they played. Ohio couldn't really move the ball at all. It'd be interesting to see what they do in this game if they do change their game plan a little bit and go away from what their traditional style is because it just didn't work last time. I think Miami of Ohio gets it done again. I think they go out with a MAC championship. I think they go out on top. And it's just going to be that Miami of Ohio defense that gets it done for them.
Yeah, they're playing at the Lions field. I know that the Lions run the football very, very good. and with the two running backs in the NFL, I think Miami's going to figure the run game out here and absolutely trample Ohio.
Next game here, Iowa State playing against Arizona State in the Big 12 championship game. Of course, this game being played in AT&T Stadium. It'll be a very fun atmosphere, and we'll see which team travels better down there to Texas. You look at these two teams, of course, they have both gotten hot towards the end of the year. These are two teams that if they do make the playoffs, they have a chance to upset somebody because they do have very good football teams. And again, momentum is everything in sports. They're playing with a lot of that right now. You look at the stats, these are two good young quarterbacks that are going to be sticking around with these two teams for a while. And we may see these two teams competing again next year. But Rocco Becht, a 3,000-yard passer, 20 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. He's been very, very good this year. A lot out of this guy. Really not much more you could ask for. And on the other side for Sam Levitt at ASU, a 2,400-yard passer with 21 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Again, these two guys are going to be around for a while, making these two teams better. Very fun to watch the quarterbacks play. This will be a good matchup between the two. Dalton, if we want to talk about the rushing attack for these two teams.
Iowa State has two great running backs in Carson Hansen and Abu Sama. Both backs are just dominant when they're on the field. I like Abu Sama a little bit more than Carson Hansen. He just is a harder runner, and I like to see that guy get the ball. He does what he needs to with the ball. And then the other side of the ball, speaking of one of my favorite running backs, Cam Scatterbo. I love this guy. I love watching him run the ball because nobody can tackle him. I mean, he has almost 1,400 yards. He'll wheel past that number this game. I'm almost 1,000% sure.
Yeah.
And this guy is just excellent. 17 touchdowns. I love this guy. Like, he is my second favorite running back in college football. I like watching him more than Genty, but I don't know why. He's just more dominant in like running over people in my opinion.
Yeah, he may be a little bit more of a power back. He definitely
Yeah.
is a lot harder to tackle in that sense. But again, Genty's unstoppable.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, I agree.
And then looking at the receivers for these two teams, Higgins has been the guy all year for ISU. 80 catches for 1,068 yards, 9 touchdowns. Rocco Becht knows who his guy is. He goes to him a lot. Now, they also have other dynamic receivers in this game. And of course, they will use their backs a little bit, not as much as some of these other teams do. And when you talk about other teams that use their back, you talk about ASU. Sam Levitt gets the ball to Cam Scatterbo. He lets this guy catch passes because Cam Scatterbo is very good at tracking the ball through the air and making a play once he gets the ball. And of course, why wouldn't that guy have the ball at all times?
Yeah.
And then, of course, on top of that, they have an 1,100-yard receiver with 10 touchdowns, and Jordan Tyson, who has been phenomenal all year. You can't ask much more out of that kind of receiving game from this guy. And then going to make a pick here. Played again in Arlington, Texas, AT&T Stadium. This will be a very fun game. We'll see what happens. I think Arizona State takes it. I think that they're, in my opinion, my favorite team in the conference to watch, but also I think that just Cam Scatterbo in a playoff game, he could go crazy. He could carry them. But on top of that, they don't just rely on Cam Scatterbo. They have a 2,400-yard passer. They have an elite receiver in Jordan Tyson. This team is very fun to watch. Give me ASU.
Yeah, I'm going to go ASU too. I know they're the theoretical home team here. I know the Cowboys don't ever win, so I think the home team's going to win in Dallas Cowboys Stadium.
Next game here, this is a big-time game. This is two of the best teams in the entire country. The Georgia Bulldogs playing against the Texas Longhorns in Mercedes-Benz. Practically a home game for Georgia, not very far away from their stadium. And, of course, Texas has to travel a whole lot farther. But I will say the environment will be probably split 50-50 because Texas has a large fan base, and they split the tickets when they sell them. So it won't be just all Georgia fans buying up everything. But, yeah, this will be a super fun one. Again, we kind of get to see, is Quinn Ewers healthy? Can he play against a top-tier defense? And again, if he isn't, will they go to Manning in this game and let him get experience before the playoffs? Of course, because neither team here is missing the playoffs, win or lose. You look at the passing attack for these two teams. Carson Beck has been a completely different guy in some games, and then in other games, he is the interception-prone guy that just cannot make plays. But when you get the really good Carson Beck, they're very, very hard to beat because when he's very good, he is that NFL-level talent that is a first-round pick level guy. It's just weird. You don't see it every single game of the season. Now, we saw it against Tennessee. We saw it against Georgia Tech. Of course, the defense struggled in that one, but the offense was rolling. What version will we get? Again, a 3,400-yard passer, 28 touchdowns, 12 interceptions is really bad. That's been the issue this year. And, of course, on the other side, Quinn Ewers, what is he at health-wise? Is he going to be really fully ready to go, or is he, 60, 70%? What version do we get? He is a 2,300-yard passer with 24 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. And again, those mistakes he was making was kind of right before that injury and then right after it. Otherwise, he's been pretty good. We'll see what happens. Will they play some Arch Manning in this game? I would expect him to touch the field. I just don't know in what sense. Is he going to be playing real legit passing downs, or is he going to be doing that running stuff that they've kind of let him do a couple times in the last couple weeks? We will see what we get. Dalton, if we talk about the rushing attack for these two teams.
Yeah, Georgia is out their best running back, in my opinion. Etienne is listed as questionable, though. I think that he might be able to play. If he does, that's a different aspect that this Texas team won't be planning for. If not, Nate Frazier's that kind of guy that will just run down your throat, and that's just what he does. That's why I like that Etienne and Frazier combination there, because you have Etienne, which is more of an outside guy, get the ball outside the backfield, and then Nate Frazier's just a guy inside zones, anything like that he's good at. You also have Cash Jones. This guy played a big role in the last few weeks, blocking and catching balls outside the backfield. He's just that kind of guy you look for on third down, third and long, a little screen or a little out route or something like that out of the backfield. And Texas has Jadon Blue and Quintravion Wisner. And also, I would like to put Arch Manning in there. Arch Manning has played a big role in the running game. He'll come in there on certain downs and just run the ball. Yep. And I feel like if he does touch a field, like you said, it'll be because of that.
Yeah, and again, you mentioned that the rushing attack there from him will be important, but also Quintravion Wisner has
really stud
of late. I mean, he just had a 180-yard game in a very important game against Texas A&M, and they controlled that entire football game because of his groundwork. And of course, Jadon Blue will be important here too. I also like to mention what you said about the Georgia offense. They haven't had Trevor Etienne at any kind of facet of being good this year. He's struggled a lot. He has not been very good. And at times, it's kind of because of that injury. I mean, he's been hindered by that all season. He hasn't caught passes like he did at Florida. That's another interesting thing is, will we see him do that? Again, questionable. If ruled out, I think Nate Frazier can handle the back work. I think he's very good. Of course, he had the game-winning two-point conversion against Georgia Tech when they just decided to start running the ball up the middle every time behind that really good offensive line and just let him work. It will be fun to see what happens between those running backs in that duel. Then you talk about the receivers. Arian Smith at Georgia, very, very good. But on top of that, they have Bell, they have Lovett, they have guys everywhere that can make plays. It'll be interesting to see who is the key contributor. And then on top of that, they have tight ends. They have 3 of them that are really, really good. Which ones will be the guys in this game? Of course, we've seen Delp do it at times, and he's kind of the guy I favor as being the superstar, but he hasn't done it this year. It's not been his game. It's been more of some other guys doing some work in that game. Of course, Lucky being one of those. And on the other side for Texas, you talk about tight ends, you talk about Gunnar Helm. He's been very, very good this year. Got more out of him than they were really expecting. And right now, sitting as their leading receiver with 48 catches, 600 yards, 5 touchdowns. But of course, they have Wingo. They have Bond, who has not done anything in a couple weeks. And they have some other guys that can be key contributors here. And they will use Wisner and Blue in the receiving game some. I'm going to make a pick here. This is probably one of the harder championship games to pick because the last time we saw these two teams, Georgia was the better team. They were the better team on the field. This was also during a stretch of time when, maybe Carson Beck wasn't playing his best football and they were still able to get it done. It'll be interesting here. I think that this does mean a lot because it will be who gets that first round bye, who gets to take a break and just watch the other teams play and game plan. That's another important part about football, man. You get multiple weeks to just sit around and kind of plan for who you're going to play, one of those two teams. And your team isn't going to be worn down from playing the week before. I don't know. This is a very tough one. I just think Georgia gets it done. I think the way that Carson Beck has been playing, if he keeps playing like that, they might be the favorite behind, Oregon to win this whole thing. And again, I think the rushing attack will be important. I think if Etienne doesn't play, what will they get out of Nate Frazier? I just expect that it'll be very, very close football game. I think maybe the injury to Ewers plays a part of this too, that they're just not playing at all cylinders, and they don't want to really play Arch because he hasn't played a ton against top tier teams. Also, Arch struggled a lot against Georgia last time he played. I'm going to take the Georgia Bulldogs. I think they get it done here.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Georgia also. I think when Carson Beck is firing in all cylinders, this team is hard to beat. I don't think they can be beat. I've witnessed at the Tennessee game. Carson Beck looked flawless. I mean,
yeah, he did.
When he's doing what he needs to do, this guy is maybe the best quarterback in college football. He is that first round draft pick that everybody talks about. It's just you don't know which one you're going to get.
Yeah. Yeah, again, and I love that you said that because it's a point that needs to be mentioned. He can sit in the pocket and dime all game long. He can throw the ball wherever he wants. He fit in multiple tight pockets in that Tennessee game, and
Yep.
Tennessee has good defense. And they
Yeah.
scored, what, 31? Wasn't it
Yeah.
31-7?
The most we've been scored on all year. Yes.
Anyway, it didn't look very difficult.
No.
He moved them up and down the field easily. And then on top of that, we've seen Carson Beck run the football the last 3 or 4 weeks. That was not something he was doing at all when he was really struggling and panicking in a lot of those situations. He wouldn't take off. He had a rushing touchdown against Tennessee. He had a rushing touchdown in one of these other games since then. It'll be interesting to see how they use that form of his game, but you're 100% right. When Carson Beck is flowing, he is one of the best quarterbacks in the entire country. Next game here, the Sun Belt Championship. Sun Belt, Fun Belt. This is one of the most fun conferences to watch in college football. This Marshall team has absolutely overperformed. This was a team picked to finish fifth in their side of the Sun Belt, not even fifth in the conference. So very interesting to see them in a conference championship game with a chance to win it. And then this Louisiana team, they had playoff aspirations at points in the season when they were sitting with a undefeated record. There was talk about it. Now, of course, they've had the 2 losses. Be interesting to see. This team is very good. They are very good. This Louisiana team is probably the favorite in this game, but Marshall can do it because they're riding on that whole, we weren't supposed to be here. They're playing with a chip on their shoulder. They weren't supposed to be here, and they're performing at a pretty good level right now. You look at the stats for these two teams. Braylon Braxton, leading passer for Marshall, 1,400 yards, 17 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions. That's a very good season from him. You see what you get out of him next year. Of course, he will be returning, I would assume. And for Louisiana Lafayette, you get Ben Wooldridge here. This guy's been very good this year. I mean, 2,300 yards, 17 touchdowns, only the 5 interceptions. And again, these two teams both kind of play similar in some ways. But of course, again, Lafayette is the better overall team. Dalton, if you want to talk about the rushing attack for these two teams.
Yeah, Marshall has AJ Turner. This guy is a stud, 8.3 yards a carry. He's probably the best back I've seen since a guy we know very well from Richlands. Absolute stud, Devin Johnson down there, RIP. Loved watching that guy. That broke all the rushing records at Marshall. And for ULL, Bill Davis and Zylan Perry, both of them are good running backs. Bill Davis takes most of the carries, though. It's with 777 yards on the year with 9 touchdowns. I mean, that's not a bad season, and especially with a team that passes the ball quite a bit also.
Yeah, and again, this rushing attack will be interesting to watch because A.J. Turner, since kind of being the lead back, the guy, I mean, 8.3 yards is crazy. And he's been very, very good. Again, you mention all the time this guy should get some more carries. This is a guy that should get some more.
Definitely, yes. Absolutely.
104 carries on the season. Been very, very good when getting the ball. Will be interesting to see how Marshall uses him in this one. And of course, you mentioned the Lafayette backfield being more of a split backfield. Get some work from both of those guys. And then you look at the receiving game for both of these teams. Fitzpatrick for Marshall's been their guy this year. Braxton trusts him. 32 catches, 569 yards, 6 touchdowns. And on the other side for Louisiana Lafayette, Lance Lejeune is the receiver for them. Of course, 44 catches on the year, 733 yards, 6 touchdowns. Been pretty good for Wooldridge, the guy he goes to a lot. And of course, they will use the running backs a little bit in the receiving game. Going to make a pick in this one. This will be a fun football game. Of course, Louisiana having this one at home. I think that they are the better football team here, but I'm just going to go with the team that has a chip on their shoulder. It is fun to root for this team. And again, me and Dalton have mentioned that we've had connection to the school, and it's just fun to pull for them. I hope Marshall gets it done on the road here. We'll see if A.J. Turner can have a crazy football game.
Yeah, I'm going to follow along with you here. I'm going to go Marshall all the way. I think I have an attachment to this school. Growing up watching Devin Johnson play for them and always just like rooting for them, even though they're not a team that a normal team, a person would root for. It's just an odd school. But I think that I got an attachment there, and I want them to win the ball game.
Next game here, Penn State against Oregon. Big-time football game in Indianapolis in the Kohl Stadium. We might see a couple of these guys back there for the Combine in a few months down the road. But, of course, this one will be very important for seeding in the college football playoffs. Now, both teams will make it. But it'll be interesting to see what happens because if Penn State were to win this one, Oregon would 100% be that 5th-ranked team that gets to be the team right outside the 4 byes. But if Oregon beats Penn State, will they be ahead of a team like Notre Dame who is not playing? And will Notre Dame get that spot? It'll be interesting to see what happens. Of course, again, important for seeding. Look at the stats in this game. Drew Aller is the guy that they needed Drew Aller to beat this year. 2,600-yard passer, 18 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, has played through some injuries this year. Very impressive from Drew Aller. He completely turned it around, and a lot of people were hating on him. They really didn't like him last year because he just couldn't get it done. Different guy, really knows how to use his weapons now, one we will mention later. And then, of course, Oregon quarterback Dylan Gabriel. He's been in the Heisman all year. 3,200-yard passer, 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, has one of the best receiving corps in the country, but do not let that, take away from his talent. He is a phenomenal quarterback and also has unleashed some of that rushing ability that he used to have back at his UCF days. We'll see what happens in this really unique quarterback matchup. Dalton, if you want to talk about the rushing attack for these two teams.
Penn State has two stud running backs, Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. Both running backs are absolute studs. Like you said, those two guys are probably going to be there at the combine soon. Oregon has Jordan James. I've talked about him all year being as just a dark horse kind of guy. He's the kind of guy that gets overshadowed by a lot of people because that Oregon offense is so dominant. But this guy, when he gets the ball, he does what he needs to do. Is 1,100-yard rusher in an offense like Oregon has, and he's the backbone of this Oregon team, in my opinion.
Yeah, and this Oregon offense is the best in the country. They are deadly. When you have a 3,200-yard passer and an 1,100-yard rusher, it is almost impossible to stop that football team. They can pretty much do whatever they want. And like you said, Jordan James has literally won them football games this year. When they beat Wisconsin a few weeks ago, it was on the back of Jordan James. Of course, you mentioned Nick Singleton. He is going to the league for sure. And then you mentioned a guy like Katron Allen, who probably returns to Penn State. Phenomenal running backs. And they are difference makers. They are game changers. And Penn State wants to run the ball. They've kind of built the culture to do that. But you look at the receiving game. They don't have to run it if they don't want to. Heck, they can let this guy run it. Tyler Warren is unbelievable. He is literally one of the best players in the entire country playing at the tight end position. He kind of reminds you of what Brock Bowers was doing at Georgia, where he was literally every single game the guy on the field that you had to watch. He was going to be the difference maker. Tyler Warren is that. He will step back there. He will throw the football. He will step back there. He'll run wildcat formations. He'll line up anywhere on the field. He is, in my opinion, the best tight end in college football by a margin that's pretty wide. And there's some really good tight ends this year. This is a loaded tight end class. This guy is literally in Heisman conversation because he has got this Penn State team to the playoffs. This guy's a beast. 81 catches, 978 yards, 6 touchdowns. This guy's deadly. Let's see how much they use him in this game. Again, he had a game earlier in the year where he had 17 catches. Then you look at Oregon. It's different than Penn State. They don't rely on one guy. They have Tez Johnson. They have, Terrence Ferguson. They have Stewart. It's just all over the field. They are loaded with talent. These are all NFL guys. Interesting to see what Gabriel can do to get all those guys the ball, see which one's the big-time playmaker in this game. I'm going to make a pick here. Of course, Oregon, they want to win their first championship in the Big Ten. They want to show, yeah, we belong. We're one of the best teams in the entire country. And Penn State, they want to defend that title. They want to defend that they are the Big Ten. You're coming in here and intruding it. And on top of that, James Franklin has been questioned a lot. This is the kind of game that they need him to win. I don't know if he gets it done. I think Oregon does. I think Oregon is they're too good offensively. I think they're just really, really hard to stop. I don't see this Oregon team losing a game until the playoffs, and I could see them, maybe somebody gets their number and beats them there, but I think they handle business here. And I think the same question will arise is, can James Franklin win the big-time games? He just hasn't been able to do it yet. Give me Oregon here.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Ducks also. They're going to be repping some cool uniforms, and those guys, they look good and they do play good. So, I think they're going to win this by marginal amount.
Next game here, this is one of the most important conference championship games we've had in a while. Clemson playing for their life. SMU, who knows what they're playing for. It could be, also playing for their life. We'll see how the committee thinks about this one if they were to lose this game. In Charlotte, of course, this is going to be very fun. This is the first time SMU's been in the conference. Clemson, of course, trying to defend conference pride. We'll see what happens. Both quarterbacks are going to be very important here. We look at the stats. Cade Klubnik is a 3,000-yard passer, 29 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Also been very dynamic with his legs this year, making a lot of plays on the ground that have won them football games. But, of course, Klubnik has proven that he deserves to be at Clemson and he deserves to be the QB1. He's been very, very good. And at the same exact time, we're looking at SMU quarterback Kevin Jennings, who's going to be here for a couple more years. This guy's awesome. Before the season started, everybody thought they already had a top 5 quarterback in the ACC in Preston Stone. They have a better one on their bench. Kevin Jennings, 2,700 yards, 19 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, also very dynamic with his legs, can make big-time plays in the rushing attack. This is a very, very fun quarterback matchup, probably the best of the conference championship week. I'm really excited to see these two guys play against each other. Dalton, if you want to talk about the rushing attack, as they have 2 awesome backs.
Yep. Clemson has Phil Maffa. We've talked about him all year. This guy's a hard guy to bring down, one of the better running backs in the country. And for SMU, you have Brashard Smith, another stud running back. He's outstanding with the ball. 14 touchdowns, 193 carries for almost 1,200 yards. That's crazy. Two great running backs. Excellent showcase for them.
Yeah, and again, the rushing attack will be very important in
Yep.
this one. Both quarterbacks want to run the ball a lot. Both running backs are key pieces of their offenses. And of course, I love that you mentioned Phil Maffa. He runs through everybody. This guy is a freak. He's a monster of a running back. And then Brashard Smith, he can do the same. He can lower the shoulder and lay the boom to somebody. Very, very fun running backs to watch. If you love the running game, you're going to really want to watch this game. Of course, we look at the receivers here. This is going to be a very important part of this game. Clemson has multiple weapons that they've really started to find here. Antonio Williams, very, very good. 66 catches, 788 yards, 10 touchdowns on the season. But of course, behind him, they have TJ Moore. And then on top of that, they have Brenningstool, a very big tight end that can make big time plays. You know, maybe he gets one of those back corner fades or something and can jump up over somebody. And then, of course, on the other side for SMU, they have Roderick Daniels, but they also have other guys that they've been going to since the RJ Maryland injury. And on top of that, Brashard Smith will be very important in the receiving game for them. Jennings, of course, gets it to a lot of his guys. Going to make a pick here. This is, again, probably the most important conference championship game. One of these two teams could be playing for their life here. This could be both of these teams' last chance to make the playoffs, win and they're in. I think that Clemson will get it done here. I think Clemson is going to win this game. I think that they've showed, stretches of gameplay that's been really good. I think they just played a really, really hot South Carolina team and really honestly could have won that one if it wasn't for Lenora Sellers breaking off a massive run towards the end of that game. I just like this Clemson football team. I think that defensively they might be a touch better. And I don't know. I just trust them to get it done here. I trust Sweeney. I trust the experience that he's had in these big time games. And this is SMU's first time playing in the conference championship game in a big time conference. I expect Clemson will win this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna go SMU on this one. I wanted to go Clemson, but I was like, man, I'm feeling the Mustangs to win this ball game. I just think that their offense is very, very good, and I think that they can win this ball game.
Thank you guys so much for joining us this week. Of course, getting towards the end of the season, but that will not be all the content from us. We got a lot of plans, of course, in the future. But again, super fun week of games. I mean, this is it. This is the championship games. These are all very important to these teams playing in them. And of course, some of those games are very important for playoff. The outlooks of what teams will be ranked where, who makes it, be very important that we see all these games and see who the winners are. Dalton, if you have anything else you want to add.
Great week of football here, conference championship week. Big decider for playoff implications, the rankings and stuff like that. Just huge week, and sad to see the season come to an end, but it's sparked to a new playoff.
Yeah, of course, the new playoff is going to be super fun. That's all what we're looking forward to. And this isn't just the end of the season. Of course, we got these championship games. But we really got a lot more to look towards, and it's kind of funny because you feel like it's coming to an end, but then we realize we got the biggest game left. I mean, the biggest games of the season are left ahead of us. We will obviously cover those, and we'll probably do some bowl talk soon to talk about all the bowl games because they will be decided also after all these games play out and we see what teams make the playoffs. I also like to mention that on Sunday we will see the final rankings. That is it, and we'll have an idea of who will make it. It really will be watching that final playoff spot and see who sneaks in there. I really don't think there's many teams left. I think there really truly is. The Big 12 championship will matter between who wins there. Clemson, SMU, who gets in there, and really Alabama sitting on the outside. If that happens, those are it. That's the teams that are going to make up the playoffs. It's going to be super fun. Again, thank you guys so much for joining us. Like and subscribe if you guys enjoyed the channel. We are enjoying it, so keep coming back, and we'll see you guys when we see you guys. Peace.
Peace.